I'll first read and summarize the passage quickly and we'll answer the questions. The most common means of human communication is language, and for good reason. Languages are sets of conventions, and conventions are convenient. It's convention that feline animals are referred to with the word cat. It's also convention when we add an S to the end of third person verbs in the present tense. We can do a lot with grunts and points, but we can do so much more when we add conventions to the mix. So, author says the passage is obviously about language and linguistics, and the author says that language is nothing but a set of conventions. It is convention that you call an animal which looks like a cat cat. Somebody must have conventionally called it cat, and we follow it. You can use grunts and symbols and gestures to communicate, but conventions make it easier. I can point with my arm to any object in this room, but with conventions, I can refer to any object in the world. So, see, language becomes the scope of language, the scope of communication becomes greater when you use conventions or language. Pointing, grunting can only do so much. The other person has to be there. The object has to be there. But without it, I can use language and convention to refer to any object in the world. And if you and I follow the same convention, then the communication happens. Linguistic conventions are how we expand on a huge scale both the precision and range of human communication. So, one important point here that linguistic conventions are how you expand on a huge scale, both the precision. So, when you start communicating using linguistic conventions, your communication becomes more precise. You say something, I understand it by following the same convention. So, the communication becomes more precise, and also the range of communication obviously increases. Still, all means of expressions have their weaknesses as well as their strengths, and words are no exception. So, obviously, just like any means of expression has its pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, similarly, words also have their strengths and weaknesses. They have two major downsides. So, what's the author doing? He's pointing out the negatives, the limitations of expression or words. First, while convenient, conventions are also second hand. They're convenient. That's their positive. But they're also second hand. What does he mean by that? They are not the thing itself, they are a placeholder for it. So, when I say bottle, or when I say uh, mic or camera or remote or watch, if I say it, it's only a word that is substituting. I've not shown it to you. I'm saying I'm wearing a watch. You and I know what I mean, but it's not the thing. It's a word which is representing a watch. So it's only a representation. It's not the thing in itself. They're a placeholder for it. This interactions, indirectness is the very point of them. But it also makes conventions less immediate than other less mediated means of expression. So, obviously, because they are second hand, they represent something, they are less immediate than something which is more direct. If, for instance, I want you to know just how cute cats are, I could say cats are cute. But it would be better if I just showed you an actual cat. Then you can relate what I mean by cute by looking at a cat. You say, oh, yeah, that's really cute. As a way to trigger in you an appreciation of their cuteness, visual experience of cats is much more effective than words could ever be, for that matter, dogs or puppies, right? This is why YouTube is full of kittens, but the annals of literature are not. Visual representation is direct. I can send my message across more forcefully by showing you kittens, and you scream, oh, cute, without my saying it. So, visual representation, you have lots of kittens on YouTube just to tell you how cute they are, just to bring out that appreciation in you rather than in the annals of literature, because words can never communicate what a visual representation does. This is the difference between saying and showing. If you want to hurry up, I could tell you we're already late, but if I hold up my watch, I can instead literally show you. This is more direct option and can be more real as a result. So now you've got the negative, that it's a representation by showing the actual thing, by giving a more visual direct representation, it is stronger, right? Second, this brings us to the second downside of the indirect nature of words. They make it trivially easy to lie. The whole point of conventions is to stand for something else, but this necessarily means that the audience has to be on guard. The very fact that there is a convention which is a representation of a thing makes it easy for the person who's using it to lie about it. So, you as an audience, if you're listening to me, you're watching me, you have to be on your guard. On what if she's lying? What should I believe? Why should I believe this? It's just a placeholder. Deception is possible with showing too, but showing carries less uncertainty. I can trick you by showing you something also, but showing carries with it less uncertainty. When you show me something, I can rely on the evidence of my own eyes to assess whether or not if it's true. But if on the other hand you just tell me, there's an additional layer of doubt. There are several other factors I have to consider which might have important unknowns. Is the person really trustworthy? So when you tell me something rather than showing me something, I have to consider a lot of factors. I have to be on guard. Is the person trustworthy? Does he know what he's talking about? What are the pros and cons of for false positive, false negative? This is a more uncertain route to evaluation. You need so many other things. You're not sure. So many other factors before you evaluate whether what I'm saying is true or not, believable or not. In all, the indirectness of language is both its biggest strength and its biggest weakness. How is its biggest strength? Because it's representative, you can communicate about anything in the world. What is its weakness? Because it's never first, it's always second hand. And so there are a lot of other factors that have been taken into account. Conventions bring convenience, flexibility, and a fair degree of precision. These are the pluses. They bring convenience, flexibility, and a fair degree of precision. But they also give a certain distance and demand a certain vigilance. But because they are second hand, if you are following conventions, I, as a communicator, am following conventions, you, as the audience, have to be vigilant that you're not deceived, you're not lied to. You have to find out if what you're hearing is true or not. Language is not the only tool with which to express yourself, sometimes not even the best one. That is why language is not the only tool of expression. And sometimes it is not even the best one. There are other means of communication which are more reliable or better. That's what the author is saying. That summarizes the passage for us. Which of the following has to be true for the author's claim in the last paragraph to be true? What does this main question mean? So remember, anytime you face a question like this is a reasoning based question. You have to ask yourself, what am I supposed to find out? Which of the following has to be true for the author's claims? Claims means conclusion. So the author has made some claims or reached some conclusions in the last passage. To reach those conclusions, what assumptions has he made? So you have to look for an assumption. An assumption has to be true for a conclusion to be true. So basically, the question is asking you, what has the author assumed in his conclusions in the last paragraph? Let's quickly go to the last paragraph, read it. Right? In all, the indirectness of language is both its biggest strength and its biggest weakness. Conventions bring convenience, flexibility, and a fair degree of precision. But they also give a certain distance and demand a certain vigilance. So he's saying one of the features of language is its indirectness. This indirectness is both its strength and its weakness. How? The strengths are it's convenient, flexible, it brings precision. The negative, there's a distance. And also they demand vigilance. Language is not only the only tool with which to express yourself, sometimes not even the best one. Therefore, for these claims to be true, what is the author assuming? Conventions in language are an unmitigated boon to communication. Unmitigated means pure, nothing which lessens it. absolute, total. So, what did the author say about conventions? They have both their strengths and their weaknesses. So, how this contradicts what he's saying? Unmitigated boon means only benefits. It doesn't have any negatives. The author hasn't said that. So, one contradicts the passage. It's not an assumption. Conventions bring in flexibility, true, at the expense of authenticity. Did he say that? Did he say that conventions bring in flexibility? Yes, he did. At the expense of authenticity. Did he say conventions always rely something which is not authentic? Is it always that conventions are flexible, but when they are flexible, they're distorted, they're not authentic, they're not genuine? The author's not said it. He says the fact that they're indirect makes us think twice before believing. There are so many other factors you have to take into account before you believe what somebody says, right? So this is also not correct. Besides language, there exist other tools to express oneself. The last sentence in the passage, what is the author's claim? Language is not the only tool to express yourself. Sometimes it is not even the best one. So the assumption here is that there are other tools to express yourself. Only then can we say, yes, he's true when he says language is not the only tool to express yourself. So this has to be true, that there are other forms to express yourself. There are other forms than language to express yourself. If that is true, then the author's conclusion is it's not the only tool. Not just that, it's not the best tool always. Therefore, the correct assumption is C.